Check. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Hi, I'm Glenn, City Island Fishing Field Team, COAF Field Team on YouTube. And this round, this is the Fishing Tips Podcast, and yours truly hosting this is the second episode of the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing series. It's a do-over from the past one that I had put together. The intent being to go through the book and just give some key pointers out of the book. And now in this version, I'm focusing more on if you're driving along or just listening versus video and talking of some of the things in the book. So this is the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. It's a book that was published several years back. And last time we talked about tips 1 through 20. And so we're just going to pick up at 21 and go from there. So let me take you to the tip 21 from the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing, the water load. And what I do is I'll read through it, and then I'll just point up some key things that are out of that paragraph. And for those that are able to join on the live stream, you can definitely put a little question Q&A thing if you'd like to. Go for it, and I'll definitely answer. Either on the call or on the live stream, or offline if you post it in the comment section. All right, so let's start out with the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing, tip 21, the water load. I was enjoying an autumn afternoon of driftboat hopper fishing on the Yellowstone River with guide Rusty Vorus. My problem was that my cast was consistently coming up about 6 feet short of trout wedged along the banks. As a team, we had options. Rusty could row us closer and risk spooking the fish, or I could muster the missing distance. Rusty suggested a solution of my problem, or for my problem. The key was having me start my bag cast with a taut line and the rod tip pointed low toward the river surface. In doing so, he taught me to let water resistance and frictional force load the rod. When you start the cast with your rod tip pointed straight in the air, there's less resistance, no instant energy source to tap to. I missed it here. Bear with me. Right there. When you start to cast with your rod tip pointed straight in the air, there's less resistance, no instant energy source to tap into, and no initial rod flex, which ultimately shortens the cast or requires more unnecessary false casting. Start it low and watch it go, Rusty said. When you load the rod from the water surface, you give your cast a head start. This is particularly useful tip not only when you're covering trout water, but also in certain saltwater situations such as banging repeat long casts into the mangroves looking for snook. It also helps you form an instant tight loop that cuts through the windy conditions. So this is the water load. I've used it in the past for various reasons, but the key is letting your line lay on the water and starting your cast from there. And from there, it's allowing you to load the rod, and guess what? You'll be able to cast no problem. So let's just think about this again. Let's go back to, there we go. Start it low and watch it go. Okay. When you load the rod from the water surface, you give a cast a head start. So you're laying your rod low, and you've got your line on the water, and you're using that water load to lift up and basically load up your rod. So give that one a try. I think even if you're on the bank, you don't have to be in a boat. I think you can still try that as well. Okay, let the current do the dirty work. A moving river current can be your best friend when it comes to avoiding tangles, setting up casts, loading the rod, and taking your best shot. Understand that in conditions, a 20 or 30-foot cast is often long enough to produce results. As such, when I guide, I have a systems system for coaching people who have never held a fly rod in their lives. If you let the water do the dirty work, when you let the current load the rod, even a beginner can make accurate casts, avoid tangles, and catch fish. Stand perpendicular to the current and toss your line in front of you so that it feeds out the end of the rod to a desired length as the water moves your fly downstream. When your line is extended and your fly is in the current downstream, skittering on the surface, this sometimes catches fish by the way, so pay attention. Simply lift the rod tip to the sky and lock it in that 2 o'clock position. Stop, wait. Now fix your eyes upstream on the target area you want to cast toward. Bring the rod forward, snap it to a stop, and aim through your thumb. The fly line will unfurl and your fly will usually land right in the zone. The key is the pause. Let the line stretch, let the fly skitter, lift the tip, set it up, and let it fly. Not pausing and not letting the current load the rod is a tangle waiting to happen. Call it a super slow motion roll cast, a beginner's trick, whatever. No matter how good you get, you'll find yourself false casting less and letting the current work for you more often. Signed, KD. Okay, I think this is going back to the first tip, 21, the water load. Well, this time you're letting the current do the dirty work and loading that rod for you as well. Just remember, as it said, not pausing and not letting the current load the rod is a tangle waiting to happen. So don't pause and don't let the current load the rod, or not let, or allow time for the current to load the rod. Okay, let's go to the next one. Number 23, roll 'em easy. I find that I roll cast on a river at least 3 times for every overhead cast I make. When you get the roll cast down and you learn to use the water to load your rod, you'll find yourself spending less time and energy thinking about casting. In turn, you'll be more focused on reading the water and finding the fish. The roll cast is important for 2 other reasons. First, it's a stealthier approach and is likely to spook fish than false casting overhead. Second, it's your go-to option when there are bushes or other obstacles behind you, where they'll likely foul up a back cast. What's the key to a good roll cast? Same as with any other cast, gradually accelerate the rod, building speed and resistance, then stop, change direction, and unfurl the cast forward. A common mistake people make is to start that roll cast with too much loose line on the water and the rod tip pointed straight at the sky. Instead, retrieve with the rod tip from a low position with noticeable tension on the line as it slices through the current. When the moment is right, and you'll develop a feel to know when, lift the rod tip skyward and snap the rod forward, unfurling an on-target cast. Signed, KD. Okay, so I think this is the same thing as what they just talked about with the water load, tip 21 and number 22. Let the current do the dirty work. That was focusing on letting other things like the water as well as the current help you with your cast by using it as a means to load your rod. In this case, roll 'em easy is reiterating the usefulness of the roll cast. In this case, I think one of the key things I got out of here is KD eventually will do a lot more roll casting than his normal overhead casts, is what he noted in the previous paragraph. On top of that, about the roll cast and what's the key to that, same as with any other cast, gradually accelerate the rod, building speed and resistance, then stop, change direction, and unfurl that cast forward. Alrighty, so that was number 23 in the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. And again, we're looking at the book, going over the tips and just making some key items to maybe take away from them. It's a podcast format, so I don't have much video in this case. Mainly the book and mainly the words, and hopefully some of the knowledge can get to us maybe while you're commuting on the way to work. Okay, number 24, saving a stroke. When roll casting or making a roll pickup, save an extra motion and thus time and a potential foul up with this tactic. With a lot of line still on the water, lower the rod tip near the surface and rotate it backward. Surface tension on the line will cause those loose coils accumulate around your feet to slide out through the guides, adding several feet to the line already in play and eliminating at least one false cast. As a bonus, this motion places the rod and line in perfect loading position to deliver the cast. Done properly, this technique can eliminate false casts entirely. All right, so let's think about this. Because yours truly, I kind of cheat things with an OPST Skagit head that allows me to do some really, really long casts with that shooting head and not having to do a lot of false casting. So with that heavy shooting head, I'm able to roll cast, switch cast, as well as overhead cast some pretty good distance than I normally would with some traditional weight forward or double taper fly line. So let's look at this one. Okay, they're reiterating, eliminating a potential false cast while you're roll casting. And how are they doing it? Let's see. It says right here, surface tension on the line. Surface tension on the line will cause those loose coils. So it's saying with a lot of lines still on the water, lower your rod tip near the surface and rotate it backward. Okay, so we lower the rod tip and rotate it backward. Okay. Surface tension on will cause those loose coils accumulating around your feet to slide out through the guide. So by doing so I'm assuming you're not holding tight on the line and keeping it in place, so you're allowing it to pick up, and that adds several feet of line already in play. Okay, all right. Well, I'll think about that. I think I have to think about that one. Possibly test it out while I'm out in the field this next time. So, that was saving a stroke with your roll casting. Okay, let's go to the next one, number 25. The Woody Hayes rule of casting. All right, let's check this out. Legendary Ohio State football coach Woody Hayes once explained why he closely embraced the 3 yards and a cloud of dust offensive philosophy this way. Let's see. When you put the ball in the air, 3 things can happen, and 2 of them are bad. Whether or not the coach actually said those words, the quote has also been attributed to Duffy, Daugherty, and others. It got me thinking about the obvious correlation with the fly casting. While beautiful long loots might be pleasing to watch, they usually don't do a lot for you on the trout stream. False casts spook fish, and all casts have the potential of developing line weakening wind knots, which occur when an angler cannot control his line. Why not let the current do the work instead? Let the water stretch the line behind you, lift your rod tip high, pause, then unfurl a pinpoint cast by directing the rod tip where you want your fly to land. The angler who learns how to roll casts, improvises with short mends, adjusts the fly line with the help of the current, and learns to let the water help him set up the next cast, is going to be much better off than the one who tries to throw a Hail Mary on every play. While you might not beat the school up north every time you play, you'll commit fewer turnovers and win your fair share of games. So, this Woody Hayes rule of casting about less time in the air and these different things. I think, well, this makes sense to me in that there's a lot of times where I'll just have a lot of line in the air, and really I didn't need that much line to get to where the fish was and to catch them. So keep that in your back pocket. I see the benefit in that next time you hit the river. Maybe try using less and catching more. In this case, using less line. 40 feet and 4 seconds. This is tip 26 in the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. It's a book that has a lot of fly fishing tips. It comes in 4 parts. Part 1, this is the section that we're currently in and that we'll be going over in this series initially, is focused more on casting. Part 2 will shift to, I forgot what it is, but it's not casting. And then 3 and 4. I think 4 is the final one that is miscellaneous stuff. 40 feet and 4 seconds. You may find it in some of my old videos. I took up this challenge, and actually I took this challenge up two ways. One, I did it incorrectly, and two, I did it again based on what was described here. So let me go read this, and then I'll point out what I mean in more detail, because I think this is one of the tips you want to keep in your back pocket when it comes to actual fishing situations. Okay, 40 feet in 4 seconds, tip 26 in the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. Different folks have tried to invent casting competitions over the years to rate fly fishers. Let's get this straight. Casting competitions rate casters, not anglers. I don't care what anyone says, being able to cast a fly line 115 feet is entertaining, but it's not practically important, especially not in trout fishing. And while throwing fly lines into a floating hula hoop may be good target practice, it's a far cry from the real deal. My friend Travis Holloman, who fished the professional redfish tour, but is an all-around angler and a damn good trout fisherman, summed up the difference between a real-life good caster and a for-show good caster this way. Give me 40 feet on target in 4 seconds and you'll catch more fish. I don't care if you're talking redfish, trout, or salmon, than anyone. In other words, factor in timing. A real test for your angling skills would be to set out a course of targets that are all 40 feet away from you, numbered 1 through 10. Someone calls a number at random, and you have 4 seconds and 1 cast to put a fly you're holding in your hand within 2 feet of that target. Not fast enough? No good. Not close enough? No good. And this gets to what I was talking about. I did 2 videos, one incorrectly from this, described in this challenge, and the other one, well, based on or done correctly per the challenge. Work on that little exercise long enough, and when Mr. Brown Trout pokes his head up in the river, you'll be comfortable with what you have to do. Your cast doesn't have to be long. It has to be on target and on time, and that's what makes a good caster and a successful angler. So this is more practical. And when I read this initially, I was like, ooh, I need to try this. And the mistake I made was I put out 10 targets, and I had another video, or at least a means to call out a number, and I would quickly cast to the different positions 1 through 10 and see if I can get it within 2 feet of that flag that I had put out. Well, I made the mistake of I didn't have it in my hand, the fly. Instead, I had it on the ground, and I was casting. So technically, I didn't do the challenge. So I went ahead and did it again. And that second time, definitely very challenging. You put that fly in your hand, and basically you've got 4 seconds to get it to the target within 2 feet based on, let's say, several targets, 1 through 10, and someone calls it out on you. I've got 2 videos on that in the channel. Just look up 40 feet, 40 seconds, COAF, or City of Island Fishing, and you should see it on YouTube. And if not, just ping me. I'll put a link in the comment section after. All right, so I think that was one of the most practical tips that I got out of the Little Red Book of Fly Fishing, and it was basically that 40 feet in 4 seconds, because I can get a long distance out. I can get some pretty decent looking casts, and oh yeah, they look really nice. Doesn't mean I'm going to catch a fish. And what I found most helpful is while I'm fishing, and let's say I'm fishing in front of me, and then I hear something off to my left or right, or just get a view of a fish in my peripheral, let's say off to my left, I'm able to redirect my cast and quickly get it there on point and get that opportunity to get that, or at least a chance to catch that fish that, that was active. So keep that in your back pocket. Okay, number 27, come closer, darling. Close counts in fly fishing as well as dancing. Even though you may have the ability to deliver a dry fly within reasonable distance or accuracy at distances of 50 feet. Oh, bear with me. I got it all skipped over here. Okay, at a distance of 50 feet or more, your chances of actually catching fish increase dramatically with every inch you can trim off that. Granted, there are situations where a long cast is essential, but while hero shots may earn applause from onlookers, they catch trout mostly in magazine stories. Consider the reasons for shortening the cast: pinpoint accuracy to achieve just the right presentation, less line disturbance on the water, far greater ability to mend and control the drift, faster hook set, and less line to manage after hookup, particularly if the fish is a good one. The list extends to dozens of factors, all of which add up to less casting and more catching. Of these, drift manipulation is most important. A shorter line translates to fewer intervening currents between your rod tip and fly, thus much easier task in maintaining the drag-free drift, essential to most presentations. To make this work, choose an approach that puts you in the best and closest position to work a rising fish or a promising feeding lane. You'll be surprised how close you can approach in moving water. If the water is particularly swift and broken, cut that distance by half. For example, we can recall many times during a prominent hatch when trout splash for insects right beneath our rod tips. At first, this might seem frustrating, but there's a powerful message here. The grass isn't necessarily greener nor the trout larger on the other side of the river. Why cast to a faraway fish when you have feeding fish within easier range? The manifesto for shorter casts goes on and on. No, yes, to be mentioned fewer snag limbs, wind knots, and other shorter tangles with a shorter cast. Signed, CM. Okay, I like this. Tip number 27, come closer, darling. It's reiterating, hey, position and getting closer to the fish and where the fish are really matters more than how far you can cast. I think one of the things I usually pick up from folks that are learning to fly cast is, or picking up the sport of fly fishing, is they all want to cast really far and immediately. And well, what kept me going in fly fishing was not that I could cast far, but was more of I could catch fish. So as long as I had something tugging on the other line, I was willing to keep at learning how to fly fish. So I think that's what tip number 27, come closer, darling, is stressing, is catch fish. Focus more on catching fish and less on that long distance casting, even though you will eventually learn that. All right. Okay, so I think you get the idea of why I like this book so much. I've come back to it many times. Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. If you want to read ahead, or if you get really interested in this one, I've got a link in this video detail description that you can pick up on Amazon. You could buy the paperback version, or you can get the Kindle version. I get the Kindle one because basically I can read it from my phone, my laptop, or also from my iPad. Alrighty. Okay, number 28. When not to cast or even twitch. This is a good one. Okay. All right. Let me read it. One recent development in fly fishing on still water is the use of strike indicators for presenting nymphs. The concept is to suspend the fly just above the bottom vegetation, where fish typically cruise to pick off insects and other organisms. The method succeeds because the fly spends maximum time in the zone where the trout are searching. Trout look for food. Trout sees fly. Trout eats fly. Angler catches fish. This tactic works best if you don't move the fly at all. Cast to the desired location, let the fly sink, and let it sit. The indicator, acting as a bobber, will hold it in place. In this case, patience is more than its own reward. Signed, CM. And guess what? I don't know how many times there's been cases where I've got that strike indicator and I'm catching a fish because I've not done anything other than cast the fly out, and it's drifting. I've got the right drift, the bubble line. It's going in unison with the bubbles on the surface. So I know I got my drift right, and I don't have to do anything else to it. And next thing I know, something struck. So not all the time you have to twitch that rod or have to give that motion. You can let that strike indicator drift and basically do a dead drift and do nothing other than wait for that strike. And again, From that one video I picked up from Hank Patterson. He was doing a little humorous one about setting the hook. Well, yeah, set the hook. If it jiggles, if it wiggles, if it moves and bobs and whatever, set the hook. All right. That was what he was taking, or that was the key point in what he was saying there. You should check out Hank Patterson. He's got some great videos. Some of them are not as recent as like a couple of years. I think is some of his more recent ones, or maybe there was one I think 7 or 8 months ago. He used to post more often, but take a look at that. Hank Patterson. He's got a great YouTube bunch of funny channels. In fact, there's a couple of videos I've done off his doing some remixes because it's just funny. He's got some very good points. It's funny. All right. Let's go to number 29. Control trumps distance. If long casts are needed in certain situations, they will count for little unless they are done accurately and with precise loop control that's needed to properly present the fly. If you don't keep your loop under control, all you're doing is casting your mistakes farther, quips Castmaster Lefty Cray. Some guides are so hung up on distance, they end up casting a bird's nest a robin wouldn't rent. Cray's message: master the form before you try for distance. I think this is more common sense, but it's good to call it out. It's great that you're trying to get some long distance on there, but if you still haven't learned to get the basics in your casting and you're making those not so great cast and making some little mistakes, well, the longer you go with that, as well as the longer the cast, I think those mistakes will end up getting bigger mistakes. So control trumps distance. Learn the basics, get that short cast in or shorter cast in, and as you get more proficient, go for the distance further after that. Okay, number 30, Pinky Perfection. Okay, I don't remember what this one's about, so let's go check it out. Fly fishers aren't effeminate by nature, but you'll occasionally find someone extending a little finger while casting as if taking a sip at high tea. Not to worry, there's a sound motive behind such a peculiar act. Removing the pinky from the rod forces the angler to become more thumb-directed, the proper position for keeping the stroke on track. When the rod tip starts to wander, to emphasize this effect, also take your ring finger off the grip. Okay? Once you recover the feel, return to a normal grip. You'll discover that both your power and your accuracy have improved. I got to visualize this one. Actually, I got to try it. Okay, so lift your pinky finger, little finger while casting, and it'll force you to use your thumb more. Okay. Let's see. And then the index finger doing the same, or the ring finger. Take that off the grip, and that should also help you recover that feel of a normal grip. This one I'm going to have to think about and try out in the field. I tend to be okay with my grip and casting, so yeah, but I'll keep it in my back pocket. That maybe when I am having some issues, I'll try loosening my grip with the pinky technique. Okay, well that was tips 21 through 30. I'm thinking I don't want to bore anyone else, and this was an impromptu live stream, so appreciate y'all joining today that we're able to. What I'm thinking is we'll probably do another one of these and really focus again on the book and reading the different tips, and then calling out a few things that that we think will help you out in the field. And again, if you have any questions or comments, definitely post them in the comments of this video. I read them all, and I try to respond to them all. And on top of that, if you want to read ahead, definitely go and order one of these books off of Amazon. Little Red Book of Fly Fishing. Okay. And then, let me just recap what we went over. And just, oh, by the way, the next time we meet, it'll be number 31 that we were working at. Okay. So this round we went through 21 through 30. 21 was the water load, where it was talking about using your line and the water, or having the water load your line. 22, let the current do the dirty work. So again, taking advantage of the current to load your rod. 23, roll them easy. So talking about more of roll casting. You'll do more roll casting a lot of times in the field versus your typical overhand cast or traditional overhead cast. Saving a stroke. Here they were talking about also picking up more line, keeping your rod low, picking up more line on that roll cast, or to get your line out there, and less false casting would be the result. The Woody Hayes rule of casting, so less time in the air, more time fishing. 40 feet in 4 seconds. Hold that fly in your rod, have someone call out a target, and you have 4 seconds from that line, that fly in your hand, and being able to get it within 2 feet of that marker that someone has called out. Great drill. Let's see, come closer, darling. So you don't have to have this, great, beautiful, learn to cast far. You can just maybe walk over and get a little bit closer if you can. Okay. When not to cast or even twitch. So using the strike indicator, aka bobber. Go ahead and just let it drift. Don't twitch it. Don't do anything. Just let it go and see what happens. Let's see, number 29, control trumps distance. Okay, so what's happening there is, again, you can be able to have a bunch of line in the air, but if you can't control it, well, it's no good. Learn the short casts, get better at the basics, then work on your longer cast. And again, you can always just get closer to the fish. All right. And then lastly, pinky perfection. Right, this is just talking about re-educating your grip, your casting grip, by taking your pinky off the rod, as well as your ring finger. All right. So number 31 is what we'll catch up again next time. I do these impromptu. May find a schedule, but worst case is I'm posting them over to the Little Red Fly Fishing playlist, book a playlist. So you definitely have an opportunity to take a look at it there. All right. So all for now. Appreciate all you joining. Again, this is the Fishing Tips Podcast, Little Red Fly Fishing book series, where we're just going through the book and calling out each tip and reading it and pointing out a few things that we hope will help you. All right, all for now. Next time we'll catch you all later, and good luck